Another tier list from Offbeat Outlaw. Oh my goodness, what's he ranking? It's the Warlock multi-class. That's so cool. I wonder where he's gonna rank Monk. You're not serious, are you? No. Hello everybody, my name is Offbeat Outlaw and I beat COVID! If this is COVID, whack! Get shit on, COVID. Yeah, I caught COVID, I beat it. It's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. Get your shots. Get your vaccines. If you didn't have your vaccines, I'd be out for way longer, probably. Anyway, beat COVID. Now let's go and let's make some fucking tier lists. So, today's tier list, the Warlock multi-class tier list. Now, what this tier list is, it is a ranking. If you put most of your levels into Warlock, what are the good and applicable multi-classes to multi-class into? There's going to be a little bit of shuffling around for like if you start with a given multi-class and whatnot, but not really. I've seen a lot of previous rebuttals for a lot of my previous multi-classes being, well, you start with the con save proficiency. That's a good reason in part, but I usually will only consider that if it's in conjunction with another feature, because you can always just get proficiency in con saves with the resilient feat. So if you're not giving something else while multi-classing, it's hard. It's a little bit of a hard bargain in my opinion. Anyway, that's a caveat. Let's talk about, we're talking about Warlocks here, baby. Here's the tier list. Now, however, how I would start this, I always rank, what would your class be if you were just pure Warlock first? And in my opinion, I think Warlock by itself solidly in the B tier. Now, this isn't to say that pure Warlock isn't good. Pure Warlock is a really good class. In fact, a lot of optimizers, including myself, use its base damage as the baseline for how much damage a class should be dealing. A lot of us also, it's also just really solid. It basically functions like a full caster, despite not having maybe as many spell slots, but in conjunction with short rests, you actually get higher value and more slots than most of the other classes. The Warlock is incredibly good, but that's not exactly what we're ranking here today. We're ranking how good is it when you multi-class with the other classes. How good do the other classes multi-class into it, I guess you could say. And starting off, we have the Artificer. Now, the Artificer requires an intelligence of 13 to multi-class into. Just for those who are not aware of the multi-classing rules, if you would like to check them up, they are in the player's handbook, but in order for you to multi-class, you must meet both the prerequisites of both your current class and the new class that you want to multi-class into. That means if you're starting Warlock and you're multi-classing out of Warlock, you still have to meet its prerequisites. The prerequisite being 13 in Charisma. You must meet these. On top of the prerequisites for meeting these class requirements and whatnot, you also have to meet the requirements for the new class that you're going into. These requirements are important. Don't just ignore them. So, Artificer. In order to multi-class into Artificer, you need a 13 in intelligence. Artificer is one of the is a half caster. It gets up to 5th level spell slots. It's a pretty good class overall, sitting more in a supportive position than a lot of the other half casters in my opinion. It is also the intelligence based half caster, meaning that it does pair quite well with Wizard and other classes that use intelligence. For example, the third casters, the Eldritch Knight subclass of the Fighter and the Arcane Trickster subclass of the Rogue. How does it do with Warlock? Well, not great. It kind of sits in a weird position. That position being that it's a half caster, but also its features don't really combine really well with Warlock. Both classes want to be using their bonus action a lot. Additionally, a lot of the Artificer's features are based around giving field support, giving temp HP, trying to draw fire. But the Warlock doesn't really assist in any of those avenues. In fact, a lot of the Warlock features use the same action economy and kind of get in the way of you doing Artificer things, and then the Artificer things get in the way of you doing Warlock things. It's not all bad. The Artificer is still a really strong class, and accompanied with the magic items you can make with Artificer, you can make some really good stuff for being a Warlock. I just don't necessarily think that this is the strongest choice of multi-class, and I think it is actually going to get in the way of you being a good Warlock. For this reason, I'm going to put it into C tier for now. Maybe I'll put it in C tier. I might bump it up later. Next, we have the Barbarian. The Barbarian is a really bad class to multi-class with if you are a caster. It's just unfortunately the way it is. For one, if you are raging, you cannot cast or concentrate on spells. Warlocks after 5th level become control casters. They start making casting spells that control the battlefield. You kind of need to concentrate on those, so the Barbarian features are getting in the way of your Warlock features again. Additionally, you're going to need at least a strength of 13 in order to multiclass into Barbarian. This isn't necessarily that difficult, but it is kind of a weird thing to have to dip into. Barbarian does give you unarmored defense, which is great. That's always a lot of fun. It's always very useful to have some unarmored defense in your life. However, the unarmored defense that you get, in order to benefit from the unarmored defense, you have to be upping both your dexterity and your constitution, and this is all to make you a little bit harder to hit. If you were worried about getting hit, there are subclasses in the Warlock that already exist that can accomplish this for you. For example, the Hexblade. The Hexblade gets access to the shield spell. You can already give yourself an armor class of like 23. It's already very good. And shields, you can always just wield a shield. So in this way, the Barbarian isn't really providing anything that I would say I would want with a class like this. So I'm going to place the Barbarian into solemnly bottom of C tier. Now let's bump up Artificer a bit. Next we have the Bard. The Bard is a really, really good class by itself, and I think it pairs very nicely with a few levels into Warlock. Bards get a lot of features really early on. They get expertise, jack of all trades, bardic inspiration, and their subclasses all by level 3. It's really, really good. Additionally, they both require the same multi-class attributes, 13 in charisma, meaning that you're not going to need to be spreading yourself out too thinly. It is a really good class. Additionally, on top of all of this, the Bard spell list isn't the best spell list in the world, but it definitely has a lot of really good options, and it gives you more spell slots for you to use with some of your other things. It just kind of shores up your abilities a little bit. And additionally, Bards have the unique thing. This is a feature that I only figured out very recently, but it's very good. I'm sure a lot of people have already known this for years, but I'm just going to say it now because I didn't figure it out so recently. The Jack of all trades feature. Starting at 2nd level, you can add half your proficiency bonus, rounded down, to any ability check you make that doesn't already include your proficiency bonus. Now, I think we're all aware this applies to initiative, but did you know that this applies to counterspell rolls as well? That's really, really useful, especially considering that Warlocks get access to both counterspell and dispel magic, meaning that Bards are the best counterspellers in D&D from a numbers perspective. Throwing Bard onto your Warlock makes them better at controlling the battlefield, better at keeping a handle on pesky spellcasters, and it gives them spell slots, bardic inspiration, and support abilities. There's literally no downsides, in my opinion, to taking a few levels in Bard. I would put this comfortably into God tier. Next, we have the Cleric. The Cleric is a very diverse full caster. It's got a lot of different abilities. The multi-class attribute requirements are 13 in Wisdom, so it's a little bit difficult, but you should be able to manage it. Taking a few dips into Cleric gives you access to channel divinities, subclasses, and some other cool and neat spells. Now, the Cleric spell list is really good. You can also change it out every single day because you are a prepared caster. This gives the Warlock class that you have a lot more versatility. The channel divinity options are really, really, really good. There's a lot of really solid support abilities in there, as well as a lot of good offensive abilities that can fit really nicely into a Warlock kit. I would say, though, that the kits themselves, at least I've personally found, don't necessarily complement each other. Unlike, say, for example, the Bard's kit, which very literally buffs everything the Warlock does and then just gives it a little bit of extra sauce. The Cleric's features kind of exist on their own and kind of help out the Warlock features. So in my experience, I've found that Warlock Cleric doesn't always work, though they don't play very nicely together when you're multi-classing. And this isn't to say that they aren't very good. I think that the Cleric and Warlock are still a pretty solid class. The Cleric is still good enough by itself that it will juice up anything that you do otherwise. But I do think that there are stronger choices when you are multi-classing than a Warlock Cleric. And for that reason, I'm going to put the Cleric, well, in B tier. Kind of want to bump up your Warlock. I don't know. Let me think about it. Next up, we have Druid. Oof, Druid. Druid by itself is not a bad class. In fact, I think it is a very, very good class by itself. I think it's got some really solid subclasses. I don't think it multi-classes well into Warlock. It is another full caster. It's the other Wisdom-based caster requiring a 13 in Wisdom in order to multi-class into it. But the features that you get with it aren't always exactly great. At least I've personally found they haven't been always exactly amazing if you're just taking a few levels into it. You get access to Wild Shape, which is an excellent utility ability, basically giving you allowing you to turn into a little dude to just like scamper around. You can turn into like a little squirrel or a bug. With Wild Shape. There are also some really good subclasses. I think the Stars Druid is a really standout choice, allowing you to, as a bonus action, give yourself advantage on maintaining concentration on your spells is a really good choice. But one subclass does not a class make, and a lot of the classes that exist for Druid do not complement the features that exist for Warlock. So it's a little bit iffy, and while there's one feature in the Stars Druid that I think really helps, I find it a little bit hard to argue that the Druid is a good choice overall. So I'm going to put it at the top of C tier for now, and I'm going to bump down Barbarian. I think it's better than Barbarian. It's still giving you full caster capability. It's still giving you casting capabilities. I just don't think the features complement the Warlock very well. Next, we have the Fighter. We all know how much I simp for Fighter. Okay, look. Real talk. Fighter's good. Fighter is just good. Like... It's just a really good class. It's just well designed. It fits well. Like I've said previously, it's the potatoes of D&D. It's just good. It's just good. If you're playing your Warlock like a blaster, being able to action surge and Eldritch Blast more is never a bad option. Being able to action surge and cast spells is great. Being able to action surge and do shit is great. Action surging is great. You get it at 2nd level. It's a clear and obvious excellent dip. Because of how Warlock works, you can get Magical Seek, you can get your Mystic Arcanums at level 17, meaning you can still get your subclass. There are a lot of really good fighter subclasses. The Ghost Lance build is based on Echo Knight and Warlock, and it plays like crazy good. The Warlock fighter, I think, is an excellent class. I think it's an excellent choice. I'm putting it in God tier. Monk. All right, real talk monk. Real talk monk mains. Monk mains. Bring it in. Look, there will come a time when I stop shitting on the monk. There will. That time isn't today. Maybe when when Wizards of the Coast publishes a subclass that doesn't suck gigantic dog dick, I will happily sing its praises. For example, the Mercy Monk is pretty good, and I'm a big fan of it. That's about it. Look, there's nothing really that the monk gives the Warlock in this case that I would say is worthwhile. It is incredibly multi-attribute dependent. This is what's called being mad. It requires Dex and Wisdom in order to multi-class into it, so that's a lot of attributes you gotta focus on. Additionally, the Unarmored Defense requires you to up both Dex and Wisdom, so you're not really gonna have either of those very high. You might have your Dex pretty high, but if you're focusing on your Wisdom, you're not focusing on your Charisma. That's a problem. 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink. You're having an issue, okay? Additionally, unarmed strikes. You should not be punching as a Warlock. Why are you doing that? Don't punch. Also, if you're playing a melee Warlock, you are a Hexblade probably, and you will be doing stupid damage just by slashing at people. Why are you doing this? None of the monk features work well with it, other than maybe Patient Defense and Step of the Wind, but if you want to move fast as a bonus action, Rogue exists. There's just not enough options here. Monk is confirmed and firmly in the D tier. Sorry, bros. Not really, though. I don't know you. Next, we have the Paladin. Oh, Paladin Warlock. We all know Paladin. Paladin Warlock is classic. Paladin Warlock is easy peasy, just like a classic good build. Everyone kind of knows how good it is, especially in combination with Hexblade. You basically only need your Charisma. You need your Strength and your Charisma in order to multiclass into Paladin, meaning you do need that Strength requirement, which is a little annoying, but if you're doing this, the Paladin more than makes up for it. Great with the auras for great support abilities, Divine Smite if you're heading into melee, it's solid class list. If you're multi-classing into Paladin, you are making a melee build. If you are making a melee build, that means you're probably playing Hexblade. That means I can basically assume you're doing making the right plays, making the right class combos and choices. But even if you are just like a random type of Warlock, you're not Hexblade, there are still great options for you available in Paladin. It's just a really solid class. I don't think it's god tier. This is the hot take. I don't actually think it's a god tier multi-class. I think it's really good. I think it's excellent, but I do think that the Paladin does kind of change your job as a Warlock. You are no longer this control caster. You gotta kind of play like a melee attacker, and it changed because it changes your job so much. I'm not gonna put it into god tier. I am going to make it, though, a very firm and solid A tier pick. Next, we have the Ranger. Now, I'll sing the praises of the Ranger when they deserve it, okay? The Ranger is not a bad class overall. It's not a great multi-class in this case. Yeah, the Ranger isn't really giving you what you need with a Warlock, if I'm being entirely frank. Ranger gives you a bunch of ranged options and some nifty sort of spellcasting options. A lot of its features are based around having some sort of bonus action companion in the subclasses. Once again, you're not gonna really be a high enough level in Ranger to make those useful, so it's and once again, there's just not a lot of good things about being a Ranger Warlock, and that's okay. They don't have to do well, but there's not really a lot of good options available, so D tier. Next, we have the Rogue. I think Rogue is a really solid choice. I think Rogue is really cool. I think Rogue Warlock is a really interesting option. Early on, you get a lot of really great stuff. Expertise for skill checks, cunning action. However, expertise is already covered by Bard, and I think is a stronger choice, so that's a little bit of like an point. You do get cunning action, though, which is an excellent ability. Being able to use a bonus action to dash, disengage, and hide is really important. You can cast a spell and then go and hide and then be hard to see for the next little bit. You can dash out of the way. You can disengage in order to get out of melee if you've entered into melee and make them play a little bit more hit and run. There's a lot of really great things that you can do as a rogue that makes being a Warlock a little bit easier. I will say, though, that while there are some really great options available to you as a Rogue Warlock, I don't necessarily think that it's always a great choice. Rogue's main feature is their sneak attack. Their sneak attack is something that levels up exclusively with the levels within Rogue. So if you take only 3 levels, you're not going to be dealing that much more damage with it, and it requires you to get into melee, which you don't really want to do as a Warlock necessarily, unless you're a Hexblade. And if you are a Hexblade, okay, that's good, but there are other features that you might want within Warlock or maybe another class to up your damage that might be a little bit more applicable. I think there are some interesting choices in here. I think the Rogue is definitely not a bad option. I just don't think it's particularly strong. I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna put it there. And I'm gonna move up Warlock. Yeah, I like that. Next, we have the Sorcerer. Sorcerer Warlock is baby's first power build, the Coffee Lock. Everyone's heard of it. It's the build where you don't sleep, you just take short rests, get a bunch of spell slots, get a bunch of sorcery points, infinite resources, you make money or something. It's a good build. I'm not being facetious. I'm not shitting on it just to shit on it. It is actually a really solid build. It's really good. Having a lot of resources is really useful. Although I will say, it's not really much of a problem in combat as it is outside of combat. In combat, you're still very limited by the action economy and how many spells you can cast within a turn. So it doesn't really matter. It can be annoying, but it's not really that important. And even outside of combat, it just means you have a lot of resources. So it's not that difficult to deal with, especially as difficult as I've seen some people online make it out to be. Looking at you, TikTok. But yes, the Coffee Lock is a great multi-class combo. It's not the most difficult combo to deal with in the world, but it is really strong, and I cannot understate that. Additionally, Sorcerer in the class, it requires you to have a 13 in Charisma, which you already have being a Warlock. So it's a great option for you in general. It gives you meta magic, which is a great way to cast spells. In addition to, and while meta magic adept, in my opinion, does decrease the need for you to multi-class overall, I think that the Sorcerer does offer enough utility to the Warlock to warrant you multi-classing into it, as well as the gimmick of Coffee Lock. So I'm going to put it into God tier. Coffee Lock's doing a lot of work here. Getting lots of resources in a game about resource management is really good. Good job, Sorcerer. Finally, we have the Wizard. Wizard is a really good class. The Wizard is really, really solid. It is, in my opinion, the best class in the game. I think it's easily the most powerful class in the game when you start looking at its spell list, its versatility, its subclasses. It has, by and large, the deepest pockets when it comes to D&D. At least in my opinion. How does it multi-class with Warlock? Okay, There are some unique things you can do. There are some unique synergies with the subclasses. Portent from Divination Wizard is a really good, is really interesting. There's also some unique stuff you can do with the Chronergy Wizard if you play with Matt Mercer content. The spell list of the Wizard is so strong, giving you access to absorb elements, shield, later levels getting more spells. It's just a really solid class to pick overall. I think the Wizard gives you a lot of really good stuff. However, I cannot deny the fact that the features do not synergize extremely well all the time. I think the Wizard Warlock is... I almost want to put it into C tier. I'm going to put it in bottom of B tier just because the Wizard is a strong class overall, but I am going to put it there. Anyway, this is the tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. Bing the bell, tell your friends, and I'll see you all in the next video. Also, by the way, did you know that my patrons see my videos 24 hours early? That's right. If you would like to see every single Offbeat Outlaw upload, including my skit videos, 24 hours before anybody else, and be able to comment and favorite and do whatever it is you need to do with my videos, join my Patreon. It's only $3 a month, and it goes a long way in supporting the channel and helping me continue to make content full time. Also, don't forget to check out my Friday stream here on YouTube. It is Paperwork Pantheon. It is a D&D game that I am DMing at level 20. A lot of people are scared of level 20. I fucking love level 20. I want to show you guys why it's so awesome and why it's a lot of fun to DM at. And if you're scared of level 20, why don't you watch it? Might make you change your mind. But anyway, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Get the fuck out of my house.